There are plenty of people in the world who are eager to throw their ideas and opinions at you, who want to tell you what you should care about, what you should believe, what you should think, and how you should live your life. But this is not that. Instead, the purpose of the mirror is to take you on a journey inside your own mind, to let you explore the inner world of your own thought processes. The mirror is not about what facts you know or how smart you are. It's about exploring what you believe, how you see the world, and why. An interactive process where the way you answer certain questions determines where you will go and what you will discover next. In here, you are the scientist and the subject. You are the doctor and the patient. In here, you will decide what is true and what is false, what is right and what is wrong. But be warned, while digging into the inner workings of your own thoughts, you may discover things you didn't know were there, things that may make you uncertain and uncomfortable. So the first, and perhaps the most important question, is this. If, for whatever reason, you weren't seeing the world as it really is, if certain misunderstandings and false assumptions were causing you to think things and do things which go against what you really believe in and who you really are, would you want to know about it?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Peaceful Anarchism on the Voluntary Virtues Network and theconsciousresistance.com and theseedsofliberty.com. So today I have Amanda Rachwitz, the Dragon Anarchist. I have been trying to get her on for the past few months. She is like a slippery fish. She's more difficult to get on than Larken Rose, so don't even try. No, you can try. Oh, God. You can try. Okay,
it's not that difficult.
Parents, it's the internet. No. So she's got, you can find her on Facebook as Amanda Rachwitz, but also her Facebook page is The Dragon Anarchist, and also her YouTube channel is called The Dragon Anarchist, and you can find her on thedragonanarchist.com. So give her props for consistency. I want to talk about some topics like the mirror, the project that she's helping Larken with, and also maybe, if you could talk a little bit about Larken's approach to psychology. I remember you saying about how he focuses on psychology and how to talk to statists because it's different than talking to people who are logical and then and have arrived at their position through logic and reason, and then people who have not and have just arrived at their position because of indoctrination and growing up in the culture. And also maybe we can get into about the marriage license. That's always a fun topic. I haven't talked about that with many people in a while. And you're also a big gamer, right? So we'll get your take on that. So Amanda, thanks a lot for coming on the show.
You're welcome, and I'm happy to be here. And I'm sorry it was semi-difficult to coordinate with me. I actually hope to have that not be as true going forward. I do want to be more available. And I sort of got lucky when I had the idea. I've always had a thing for dragons, and when I had the idea to make my thing centered around dragons and make be the dragon anarchist and stuff, I was like, what are the chances that I'm going to have the Dragon Anarchist as an open, available name for all these sites? And it worked out great. I mean, GoDaddy had the domain open, and YouTube had the username open, and my Instagram, which I told you I just made. Right. I haven't had one really yet up to this point. I just launched it the other day. And that was an available username. And so on not a single thing anywhere have I had to add a weird extension to that or add numbers into the website or, whatever. But I haven't had to do anything weird. Like the name is just out there and available. No one else has it. So
it's because you're just weird. That's why nobody thought of it before. You're you're right. The first one.
How many people are like dragons? Anarchy. Clearly those go together.
Clearly, undeniably. Right. So before you get into any of those topics, can you go into a little bit of your background in how you became a voluntarist and an anarchist, and what books or podcasts stimulated your development?
Well, I will say this. I started, I have a very sort of all over the place, weird path. I grew up as a just in a conservative Christian household. I didn't think actively about politics much other than the super opinionated people I was around when it was time to talk about politics. You know what I mean? So I sort of had all the opinions of my parents because I parroted that the way most people do. And I hadn't really, hadn't really occurred to me that things that had been presented in my world as a certain way, it didn't occur to me that those things could be very, very different from the way they were presented until I met the man who's my husband now. And he had, 20 years on me of just reading and reading and reading. He was just heavy into reading about anything he could get his hands on. He loved fiction too, and he was into fantasy stuff like I was. But he was just a curious person, and he's read so many kinds of books about different kinds of topics, nonfiction. And so he was a fascinating person to talk to because he had all kinds of knowledge about things I had never considered. And so he was not an anarchist yet or anything, but he was aware of a few problems. Like he was aware of the fraudulent, thing that the Federal Reserve is, the fact that it's, a private entity owned by, private businessmen who are bankers or whatever. And it has been since, it spawned out of nowhere in 1913. And so he knew about all that, and he introduced me to some of these ideas slowly. And I was the typical programmed statist in that I had these sort of emotional reactions to him suggesting that this kind of conspiratorial stuff was going on. If for no other reason than I had been sort of programmed to just react to that as something crazy. And the thing is I couldn't consciously think of anyone in my life ever having said, well, anyone who mentions that this narrative is a conspiracy theorist. I'd never had anyone say anyone who says otherwise is crazy. I couldn't consciously think of anyone having demonized people who thought like my husband. And yet somehow this programming was there. And I remember the term conspiracy theorist coming out of my mouth and like coming into my brain out of nowhere. And I wasn't even sure where that came from. And I wasn't even sure why I thought he was crazy. And it took some introspecting to even become conscious of that. But he had suggested a few things might be not the way they were presented. The whole tax system being one. And so I sort of shot him down on some of those topics. And then a little while later, and he wasn't pushy. He was just like, you aren't somebody who's ever looked into these things. And I have. If you want to look into them and then you want to talk to me about it, and then we'll be on the same level because we'll have both reviewed the data, then you're welcome to Google that and look into it. And I ignored all that. I didn't want to Google anything about that sort of thing for a while. And I just thought I was just sweeping under the rug. But one particular night where, we had a disagreement over something, I remember coming away from that going, why do I have a problem with going to look into this myself? And why is it I just don't like this idea? Like, what is this uncomfortable feeling I have? So I was at least conscious enough to do that. I can give myself that much credit. And I thought to myself, I am afraid he's right. And that's why I don't want to go look. So then I sort of got this weird defiantness towards myself in that moment. Because it was like, if it's true, why are we afraid of it? Are we really afraid of things that are true? Like, if it's true, wouldn't I want to know? Because I'm not a little chicken shit. I shouldn't be afraid of the truth. So it was sort of my self-image, this self-image of someone who's like, no, I'm curious and I care about the truth and I'm not afraid of it. That sort of image of myself that sort of kicked in at that point. And I thought, well, I'm going to Google this stuff. And, the more I started looking into stuff, the more it was like, wow. So things are not just obviously the way the media has been portraying them to me for so many years. Things are not just obviously a certain way. And there's actually a lot of legitimate reasons to believe that things are this way. And that experience was what sort of, at least, I think just made me more open. So at this point, it was like, okay, I'm at least open with the fact now that the world is not the way it's being presented to me. And there could be a lot of other things that are true that I don't know about. So from there, I sort of went on with life, and I didn't do much in the way of just researching more or doing much more for a little while. And then Tom and I relocated back to New Jersey for a few years to be near his kids, who are much older. And we were there, and I had a weird sort of person I stumbled across on the internet who was actually in more of like the new agey stuff. And I don't necessarily think anymore that this guy is knows what he's talking about on a lot of things. But he was one of these sort of new agey types that was really into the aliens and stuff. But what was fascinating about him, what I didn't know about, was all these fine details of like the Federal Reserve history and history of like other countries and what actual wars were about, not what they were, said they were about. There was all this stuff that he had been researching, and he had a lot of actually documented good stuff on that. And I found that really fascinating, and that sort of blew the lid on a bunch of other things for me. And that's when I was like, just hungry to learn more. I want to learn more. I want to discover more, whatever. And then I just, I stumbled across Tragedy and Hope, where Richard Grove and Lisa Arbuchesky have done a whole bunch of work in putting together verifiable real history and connecting the dots of what our history's actually been. And they sort of teamed up with John Taylor Gatto, who wrote The Underground History of American Education, and is known for being, the New York school teacher for like 30 years. And he wrote the whole book on just that indoctrination system. And that was a huge point in moving me towards liberty and just towards the way people should actually live and be free. And then I stumbled across the video that I mentioned on Jeff's podcast on Anarchist, which was The Philosophy of Liberty, which is a great little animated video that sort of describes it. And it was right around that time that I saw that video, and I had been toying with the whole idea of what government, if it exists, should really look like. And I took that video and just was applying it to different areas of life, different scenarios, where it was just an individual and an individual, because that video broke it down to the individual level. And I thought, there's no legitimate way in which someone who wasn't doing anything to this person over here, where this person over here gets to come over and initiate aggression on to like steal or force someone over here to do what they want. There's no way to make that okay. Even if it's this person walks into this person's business and they think that they're like slightly rude to them, or that person goes, I don't want to serve you here. And then they're like mad. This person does not get to then try to make that person give up their money via the threat of force, which blew the lid on the whole, you can't discriminate against me and make me leave your restaurant like media thing, which is designed to make it all about you're supposed to be nice to people and serve everyone. And that's the guise under which it's made into this moral issue, when really it's the reverse. It's using people's feelings to justify thought police, which is, you have a thought about me I don't like, and therefore I want to be able to rob you, because I want to be able to make you give up your goods and services, via the threat of force. And I got to anarchy sort of over a path of maybe several days or weeks through that. And Ron Paul was a big thing for me right around the same time. So I had those two things compounded. I was hearing Ron Paul and excited about him and hoping that he could educate a bunch of people on liberty. And then I saw that video, and then I was like, I watched it just demolish in front of my face. And it just went away and was like, there's no such thing as legitimate government. It can't exist. And as soon as that clicked, I had never even thought about anarchy before, but as soon as it clicked, my brain like reached for the word. It was like, there's a word for that. And all of a sudden it was like, holy crap, I'm an anarchist. Because my brain just remembered anarchy literally means no rulers. And I thought, well, that's what I am then. And I even sort of philosophically understood that was the correct term to use, because even though it had been turned into chaos before, I thought, well, that literally just means no rulers. And I've just discovered that there's no such thing as a legitimate one at all. So I guess I'm an anarchist. And then right at that time, I stumbled across a video of Larken Rose, and I thought, well, this guy puts it in like idiot-proof speak. And like, and I was just excited because I was like, you could just say these things like that way and people will, and it just makes so much sense. That's amazing. And so And from there it was just, gradual, just more and more and more, and getting more curious about who else was out there, who else was talking about this stuff, linking up with people online, and, same story a lot of us have. So that was me, just average everyday statist who hadn't really thought about anything. And
yeah, it's really amazing, like the how we all come to this through this natural progression. Most of us, I guess, of reading and learning and teaching yourself, and then applying that to the real world, and
Right.
and then it kind of, like you said, it just disappears. Like, why do we need it at all? And when you call yourself an anarchist for the first time, I think that's a pretty jarring experience, and especially, I guess, when you tell your family about it and your close friends, and then you got to break it down, because everybody has an emotional reaction, like you said. Like, statism is not built on a foundation of logic or reason, right? It's built on a foundation of nationalism, emotional attachment, the reptilian brain, all instinct, nothing to do with logic, reason, or anything that has to do with a human being at all.
Right.
Right? They appeal to the basest parts of our brain, and that's the only way that you can rule.
Yeah, and I think too, the part that's the base part that is, I think, it's sort of weird to say this, but brilliant about the notion of government. And I don't mean the piles of ignorant minions that are most of government. I mean the people who, are more like the businessmen that are at the very, very, very top, that are the people that would be sociopaths to their grave to try to control other humans, that know exactly what they're doing. And those people, like the people that started the New Education Foundation, that was a big part in developing American compulsory schooling, to make that all about turning people into obedient soldiers. That those people, they're brilliant in this one sense. They understood that the base need for a sense of security in human beings, which is a naturally good thing, because it's our sense of security that helps us our desire for security that helps us survive. But it's playing on that to try to increase that to this unhealthy degree. See, there's a billion unknowns in the natural world, and those unknowns and those risks that in a way are always a threat to our security are also the things we have to go out and interact with and learn about and be out in it in order to grow and expand our knowledge and our influence and the kind of person we are, and enrich our lives. We have to go out into that scary world. And so if our need for security begins to get so high that it's trumping our ability to do anything in the world, like learn and discover and innovate and do any of those things, then that desire for security has become an inhibitor that's like a mental health issue almost, because it's too high. And the reason that it's too high is because our fear is too high. And so the whole idea of government spawning at all comes from some humans who were smarter than your average burglar, your average mugger, or whatever, in that they thought, how do I get what I want from people in enormous amounts of just material stuff and just their time, and how do I suck everything I want away from people and control them long term without the immediate consequences of them defending themselves against me. Like the burglar doesn't think about the immediate consequences really of that person in the house who might try to defend themselves and might kill the burglar. He's just focused on the short term of, I just want to meet this need right now by force. He's not planning for the long term. A sociopath that wants to control people goes, how do I train people to see me, the burglar, as their protector? So that they will give up everything, because they will be convinced that I'm protecting them from the scary stuff out there, and the boogeyman, and the guy that's down the street that's the scary sex offender. So, oh my gosh, I need to, like, this guy needs to protect me and make a bunch of rules that everyone has to follow and surveil everyone. And that's what it does. So it's twisted in that it actually takes a naturally good thing humans have, which is a desire to survive and to have some sense of security, to, build a home that can at least provide for that day-to-day security from the elements and have food and expand our, level of living to provide certain levels of security. It takes that and it just magnifies it to an irrational degree so that humans don't even live. We don't go out and develop ourselves. We don't innovate. We don't take any risks. We just stay fearful, hunkered down, and we don't do anything with ourselves. And we just are afraid of everything down to, what somebody says day to day online. And now that's a big deal because our feelings are hurt. And now we're afraid of things like, being offended. And so that is, to me, the brilliance, in quotes, of government in an evil, totally evil way. It's the actual brilliance that's behind people that do know what they're doing. And I think the highest level politicians, they're doing a job and they know what that job is. And they speak in fallacies all the time. And maybe not all of them, but I think a good majority of them, they know logic. And that's how they know how to manipulate human brains. If you understand what logic is, then you know that if you train someone else to think in fallacies while tapping into their emotions, you can make them think in contradictory terms all the time. So they hold contradictory beliefs inside that don't make any sense. And you can look at a lot of these politicians and where they went to school and their history. And they were taught things that people in American compulsory school weren't, like logic, grammar, and rhetoric. They went through the classical disciplines. So some of these people know exactly what they're doing, but they speak like retards because they're trying to speak like the masses are thinking now and are trained to receive things. Like the masses are trained now to go, oh, right. Someone scary's over there, must kill them. And so they don't ask questions. And so the other person, so these politicians can get up and say things that to people who know logic go, that's stupid. That doesn't make any sense. Well, a lot of them know better. They know exactly what they're doing. That's why everything they're saying is dumb, because they're not trying to speak logically to the masses. They're trying to appeal to that base desire that you and I talked about. That's just, I need to survive and I need to be secure. And they're blowing that up and they're just making that irrationally intense for people because of fear. And so government is just this thing that turns our desire for some security into this irrational need to have freaking padded walls around us. And that's why people are statists. It's not even because it's not because they're necessarily violent or they really just want to go around hurting their neighbor all the time. It's more because they think defensively. Like they think, well, everyone else is out to get me, so I need the state to protect me from everyone else that's out to get me. Yeah, so that's why you do all that crap.
Reminds me of a Mark Twain quote. It's easier to fool someone than to convince them that they have been fooled, right? And the bamboozle is the lie is the first thing that we have to recognize and overcome. And once you overcome that hurdle, everything else kind of falls into place and it becomes much easier to look at the world a little bit differently. But before you do that, before you question your own upbringing, your own indoctrination, you can't progress to the next level. So, right. So yeah. In going along with this, can you talk a little bit about the project, The Mirror, that you and Larken are working on?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, what I really want to stress is how much this project absolutely, totally needs to be just constantly funded. I really hope that there are going to be some very interested, liberty-minded investors that will love what Larken is trying to do and understand it, and that'll be at Acapulco too, because I tell Larken almost every day, I'm like, if I had $1 million, I would throw it at you so you could do this, because what he basically has to do is create an interactive computer animated world that's basically a really huge if-then chart. So there's a million questions, well, not a million, but a lot. I'm just exaggerating for effect here. Million questions that it's going to ask someone, but it's depending on their answer, depends on where the questions are going to go. Or it depends on, so if they answer yes or no to this, then it's going to go over here. And, if you imagine like a novel's worth of writing that way, in addition to the fact that he's working in one of the most complicated software programs out there, that it's open source and free, but it's so complicated to use that most people give up before they get started in it. He's working in Blender, and then he's doing this while he's not, it has to be free. It's something that for it to work and for it to spread and get to the most people, he doesn't want it to cost anything. And so he's getting no return for this thing. And it's going to, and he's doing, as far as programming and animation, he's doing what would normally take, like if it were the length of it and the content of it, it would be like what would normally take a hundred people maybe on a team, combined with, programmers and animators, like you would see for a movie, to tackle what he's doing because of the content, the length of it, and the work involved. But one guy's doing it while also trying to stay afloat and pay bills and take care of things, which is actually, a lot easier said than done. And he's constantly, if he has to constantly focus on trying to survive, which a lot of the time he does, he can't put as much time as he wants to just be, to just hunker down and work on this. So, it could take, if it doesn't get serious funding or enough funding or whatever, it could take years. And it's such a massive project. He's one guy doing what, would take a lot of, normally like a team of 100 people to do. And the reason that he's the only one that can do it is because he's got an unusual combination of knowledge, where he sort of understands the statist brain, because he's spent a vigorous 20 years arguing with people and been an anarchist for a long time. He understands their brain really well, and he understands the progression of questions and the preciseness with which this program needs to be written for them. And he understands sort of the visual aesthetics, like this can't look too much like any one, major media, Hollywood thing or movie or anything like that, but it still has to look aesthetically appealing just enough, at least weird enough, to be intriguing. And so he understands a lot of elements of this project that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily understand, and he knows exactly how it needs to be. And so it's also not one of those things that can be worked on by multiple people, really. It's like it really has to be fully designed by him, because he's got exactly how it needs to go in his mind. So it's like he's going to take a long time to do it. Now, if somebody threw a huge amount of money at him so that he could, take care of bills and everything like that and live and just pour all his time into this for a good while, then it would get finished that much sooner. But because it's such a massive project, it's hard to see like the light at the end of the tunnel right now and even guess, especially when he doesn't have a lot of funding. Now that I've been really close to the project and I talked to him so much about it for hours and hours, and I've worked with recording on it or whatever, I really believe in the project. And I mean, really, there's so many ways in which it's genius, and I really believe he knows exactly how it needs to be, and he can totally do it. But since the feds totally smashed his finances and his business and whatever all those years ago over the 861 thing, which is what, he's really known for, it's sort of like being under mountains of stuff and trying to constantly dig your way out of that while also trying to have enough time to do this big thing over here that's this mountain of a project. And so I'm really passionate about it, and I really want to see people just throw all their support behind that, because I think it's one of those things that it might be the best, waking people up and furthering the idea of liberty project that exists out there right now that I've heard of at all. I mean, it's, maybe the only thing that would be really close next to that is just the existence of Bitcoin in that currency, freeing people up and stuff. But that's a huge, I think Bitcoin is going to be huge for liberty too, but this is more potent because it goes right to the deprogramming of people. And it's non-threatening because he understands human psychology. He understands this needs to be something that is an aloof, disinterested thing that they can explore, and they are totally the pilot of the whole thing. They get to decide how long they're in it. They get to run away when they want to. They get to dig into it when they want to, and they understand that they are digging into the workings of their own brain. And at every step, it's, basically trying to intrigue them enough to want to go on, but also just let them know, it's up to you. Do you want to go deeper? Do you want to discover what you really think and how you really see the world? Do you want to uncover things that are not consistent? That's why in the trailer, one of the very first question is, if the way you see things are not how things really are, would you want to know? And they can start with like yes or no. And so it's their choice to, jump in. That's why it's the mirror. It's their choice to take a look at their own brain. And it's not about anybody's opinion and anything. And it'll be one of those things that it shows them what they've done along the way. So they'll be able to look and go, okay, these are the answers I've given. And they'll be able to, and it'll be able to show them, here you said this. And over here you said this. And they can look at their own mind and see, that didn't line up with what I said over here. So I'm contradicting myself. Which is it, kind of a thing, but in a non-threatening way the whole way through, and in this way that leads them very carefully. So the idea is that if they finish it at all, other than choosing to just, sort of quit or back out or whatever, and they don't want to go to the end conclusion, if they really finish it, then they're basically an anarchist by the end of it.
So well, real quick. So how far in the question tree does the program call the person a racist? I'm just kidding.
Oh man.
Yeah,
you said this. Here you said this. Some might call that no. One of the brilliant things about it, and I don't even know fully how Larken's going to pull this off, because only he understands how it's got to be, and he's the one working on the project. But one of the things is that the program at no point will the narrator. At no point will the disinterested narrator who's guiding them through the program assert anything, like make us claim, like tell them anything about what they think. Do you even econ, bro? Like right, because the whole point is that it has to hold their natural defensiveness and their belief that they're basically a good person and that they're right. It has to hold that in mind at all times, at the forefront of what the program's doing. It has to remember nobody wants to feel like you're trying to go, you're wrong. And so that's the other thing that's tricky about it. And that's why the more I understood the program and then what he wanted to do, the more I was like, okay, one, this will change the world. All it needs is a good marketing program behind it once it's done. And two, now I know why only you can do this, because I talked to him enough about it and understood enough about it, and then saw enough what he was doing with the way it looked, and I realized, yeah, he knows how it needs to look. He knows how it needs to be. He knows exactly how it needs to go, and it's complex enough and it's a big enough job that only he could do it. But my dream would be to just in a way, sort of make the universe pay back Larken for what the feds did to him. Just, fund him enough to not only have all of that stuff that, messed up their, the Rose family's finances for years, whatever, and made things difficult for him, like clear that debt out of the way and get that done with, but then fund him into the future so that he can just put all his energy into this. Because that's what he wants to do. He wants to be able to spend all his time working on this thing. But, it's hard to do when you're also the provider for the family and you're trying to bring in enough to pay, expenses and bills and things like that. So I'm really excited about Anarchapulco because they're going to be, Jeff Berwick and also Nathan Freeman's like the event coordinator and stuff and organizer for it. They're just getting together a really awesome group of people. So I'm looking forward to that. And I do think that that's going to be a place where people want to be. I think if you're interested in liberty and if you're interested in actually affecting real change in the world, then it's going to be a really exciting place to be at Anarchapulco 2016 this year, because there's some great people that are going to be there.
Yeah, I know. You're rubbing it in for me. I didn't make it last year. I'm probably not going to make it this year, so you're just making me feel worse. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
The only
Sorry about that.
The only Liberty Fest that I went to, it was Liberty Fest. The only Liberty event was Liberty Fest, which is in Brooklyn. Right, this is I guess the closest one to me, and I was there twice, and that was an awesome experience. Meeting Adam Kokesh and Jeffrey Tucker and Carlos Morales, and it's so amazing, when you go to these places and you only know these people through their YouTube channel, through Facebook, and then you actually meet them. You're like, wait a minute, you're just a human being. You're just a mortal like me, man.
I can touch you. Well, you're real.
Well, that's a disappointment. No.
You're a squishy mortal. Who knew?
I know, and it's it's amazing that I was able to talk to these people and also get little interviews with them, from my channel, which is really cool, because so many of them are so busy that it's just hard to get a hold of them to interview them, and so so it's just a wonderful thing to be around liberty-minded people, and Liberty Fest is not necessarily an anarchist or voluntarist meeting, right? It's just general libertarian, but Anarchapulco is like primarily anarchist, which is really awesome.
Yes.
I can't imagine it. And we visited Asheville, North Carolina, where a bunch of volunteers live down there and peaceful parenting types, and that was a really awesome experience. Just being around people like that, it's just an amazing experience. Hard to duplicate.
Yeah, it is. And I've been to a few Liberty events. I've not been to Pork Fest or any of the major ones, like the Free Your Mind conference or Libertopia or any of those. But I've been to Ernie Hancock of Freedom's Phoenix. He lives in Phoenix, Arizona. I've been to his house, and I've been there to meet Richard Grove and Lisa Arbacheski from Tragedy and Hope Productions. And I've been there to hang out with Adam Kokesh and Macy when they were on their Freedom Tour, and got to hang out with Adam in the trailer and talk to him. And of course, I've been to Jackalope Fest, which is a small but quickly growing northeastern Arizona Liberty Festival for anarchists. And I've been to that, and that's actually where I met Larken Rose when he did his very last tour before he retired to focus on the mirror. I met him at Jackalope. And every single time I've been to around these people in general, all of them that I've met, it's just been some of the highest caliber conversation that I've ever had. I mean, I meet like nothing short of interesting, intelligent people there who are a pleasure to talk to, who are kind, who are really open, who are curious, who are just innovating and ready to come up with new ideas, ready to jump at anything. I've watched anarchists so often show up with cash in hand at places, and they just throw their money at anyone that they think is doing great and is furthering the idea really well or has some great idea. I've watched them slap money into each other's hands. Like they walk the talk, and they are passionate, and they love meeting new people, and they're just great. So it does spoil you, because
so you didn't see any.
Then you go.
So no Molotov cocktails at any of the anarchist meetings. You didn't see any of them. Nothing.
Needless
Not
to
even
say,
one.
no.
Are you serious? What kind of anarchists are these?
No, the worst we had was, I think there's one guy who showed up in an event, and he showed up at someone's house, and he just didn't get the message that like this was a bunch of people who are like mostly anarchists, and that's fine. I'm fine that he showed up. I wasn't like, it's not like I'm thinking, oh, Statist shouldn't come. No, Statist should come. But he was very into the political movement and getting these laws like, reduced or repealed, getting, petitions were big to him. He was really about like activating people on petitions. And he didn't get that he was in a place where most of us have been past that for like a while. Like we're like, dude, you're not fixing anything with a petition. We weren't like that. It was really cool to watch because he was so enthusiastic. I mean, really enthusiastic. And so it was one of those guys that you didn't want to you weren't going to crush him. You weren't just going to like crush his dreams and be like, no, fuck you. We're anarchists, and tell the guy to leave. Everyone was super nice to him, and they would just listen to him. He would just ramble on and on about how much you got to petition and get these laws to come, so we can, make ourselves more free, kind of the longer leash thing. And he just didn't realize he was in a group of people who weren't really like slavery light. Like let's still try to be in government to shrink government. Like he was very about that. And so people were gently presenting like what we thought and letting him know what we thought, and then just hearing him out and listening to him. And he went away all jazzed and excited at the end of the night. And I think at the end of the night he still had no idea what we were talking about. He was really into getting this political stuff going. He was all about that. And it was just cool to see that everyone was nothing but nice to him and kind to him. No one was like rude or trying to be rough or abrasive or burst his bubble. Everyone was sort of honest and stuff, but most people were willing to listen to him. So it's just been nothing but an honor to be around liberty-minded people and anarchists, because they really get it. So
before we sign off, I just have to ask you one more question. Since you mentioned Adam Kokesh and the idea of shrinking government from within, what is your opinion on Adam Kokesh's 2020 run for the president on the platform of peaceful dissolution of the federal government?
I haven't talked to Adam a lot, or like I met him in March, I think it was, and so I didn't talk to him about running for president at the time. I had a short conversation with him in the trailer when we were all there. My husband and I were there, and we talked to him and Macy briefly. And I haven't seen his recent videos about specifically that, like why he's wanted to do it. So you might know better than me, but my take on it, without having talked to him, or my guess, knowing Adam, is that one, he wouldn't actually want to be someone who was doing anything in the political realm that could be deemed as enforcing anything, like coercion. Like, just if he got into that role, it would strictly be to attempt to dissolve the power that government has and basically end up with, far fewer government minions, because he helped to dissolve a bunch of that. I don't think almost everyone else I've ever run into that has any interest in trying to, change the system from within, there's almost always this level of some kind of ego involved. There's a lot of people who I think just would have no problems taking a government paycheck and thinking, well, I'm getting a nice government paycheck, and I'm working towards liberty, but mostly I'm getting a nice paycheck. And there are people who I'd be, I guess I would suspect, if they wanted to run for office, but I've heard enough out of Adam's mouth that I don't think that's his idea at all. And two, I don't necessarily think that he thinks he actually has a shot. I think that what he's doing, because he doesn't actually want any power, he doesn't actually want to coerce people, he doesn't want to enforce any laws on anyone. I think that what he hopes to actually do is just really blow the lid off the whole anarchism and voluntarism idea in a bigger way. So sort of carry on the flag after Ron Paul. Ron Paul was getting there, but there were a lot of things that Ron Paul would say this, that Ron Paul would not say on purpose, because he was trying not to scare people off. So Ron Paul didn't use the word anarchism. Ron Paul didn't quite go there. He would say things that he didn't necessarily all the way agree with to sort of appease the constitutionalist ears, things like that. Like, Ron Paul would be gentler on people. And I think Adam sort of wants to take the education campaign further and get more people about real actual liberty by running with that as his platform, knowing full well they would never allow someone like him to get in, because the puppets are still puppets. They still work for someone higher than they are, who, people, and they're sort of pre-selected. So someone who's actually got, is going to put a bunch of them out of work is not someone they're going to really let in if they can have anything to do with it. And since the same, people that, own the banks that also are in bed with and own government, since those same people that are in control as always have been, I don't see Adam going anywhere. And I don't know, maybe Adam really thinks that he has a shot. And then if he did actually get the presidency, then he would actually try to, successfully dissolve the federal government. But I think that him running on that platform and doing that at all, like running for president, is just his way to go, well, the world is mostly statist. So if I sound like I'm in their game, then I'll get more attention, because people are open to, more than they're open to hearing about anarchy, they're open to, are you a freedom lover, and are you trying to, do something for me in the political realm. Okay, well, play in the political realm to get statist attention, and then shatter their belief in government on the way. And I think that's the only way in which I would say, well, okay, I guess I'm okay with what you're doing. Like, I don't think there's a moral issue there. And I think that's what Adam really wants to do. I don't get from the guy that this is like an ego thing, or like he really, truly thinks that being a politician can be a good thing in any way. I don't think that that's what he wants to do at all. So that's where I'm at on it. But again, I haven't actually sat down and like talked to the guy about, where do you think this is going to go? And, are you okay with, what if you somehow got the job? That does mean that temporarily you're getting this government paycheck, but do you think that's a problem if you're going to dissolve huge branches of government and then stop a bunch of coercion going on in the world? Or, I haven't had that conversation, so keep that in mind. I don't really know where he's at with that. I just know what I've got of the guy so far and what I imagine he hopes to do with it, because I know he's a smart guy.
Yeah, I think I pretty much agree with you with that, and I think he's definitely more along the educational route, like Ron Paul. I don't know if he actually thinks he's going to get elected. I don't know, but I think he can do more good. Just I guess the same reason that Jeff Berwick said he was going to run for some office, right? Right. Just for the educational purpose. But yeah, so like you said, like if he actually does get into office, I would actually be frightened for his life because I don't see them reacting well to him saying, "All right, you're out of the job, you're out of the job, you're out of the job." Like thousands of people, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions of people out of the job, and then people on welfare. The check stopped. Like what? People are just gonna say, "All right, I guess I don't have any more welfare." I don't know. I don't see it being as that easy. So.
Right. And I think, people saw what happened with Ron Paul, all the total corruption and obvious just bullshit that was pulled off by the GOP and others. Like, it was so clearly and evidently controlled and just manipulated by people that had the resources to manipulate the whole thing and make sure he wasn't going to get very far. And Ron Paul wasn't even an anarchist or trying to just talk about completely dissolving all the federal government right away. Like he wasn't even doing that, and he was shut out. So, Adam is a smart guy. I think he probably knows that he's not going to get there, and yet he's going to try, because where is the world at? Most of the world is in politics. So get their attention by being in politics, and then and then try to inch by inch get closer to a world that's much less coercive, with much less controlling freaks running around in the world trying to enforce stupid laws.
Yeah, well, that's a redundant phrase, stupid laws, but
right. Laws are inherently stupid. So oops.
Well, yeah. So some are like harmful, some are just unnecessary, some are redundant. But yeah. Well, one thing I'll say before we sign off is Adam's book Freedom, and when he said that it was banned by the Department of Justice or something, right? It's banned in prison, and I mean that's just an amazing thing to think about. Like, we're in the digital age, the age of the internet, right? With like Pirate Bay, and like you can download anything, and a book is banned. What? Right? you have open source everything. What? How can you ban a book?
It's really funny because in a way it's sort of pathetic, and I think it sort of reveals how outdated a lot of the people that are used to being able to just control the world, the politicians, a lot of them. So many of them don't even know how to freaking use computers. Like, they pay people to do that for them, and they're kind of out of the loop. And I think they have these old-fashioned ways of, well, this is how we're going to scare people and control people. And it's like, and what's great is now that there's these new generations of people, like people creating cryptocurrencies, who are just laughing in the face of authority. And I think that's one of the best things we can do, is just fucking laugh in the face of authority. Like,
yeah, it is.
Just say, you know what? Like, because why? Laughter. If you think something's funny and you're laughing at it, you can't be afraid. And the only way they know how to manipulate people, the only reason government exists, is through fear. Like I said, they play on the need for security, and they blow that up through fear. And so once people are just going, Nice try. Still gonna download 100 movies a year.
I know, right?
Then
FBI piracy is not a victimless crime. $250,000. Right? You see that in every single movie. You're like, what the hell? Like, have you heard of Pirate Bay?
Right, exactly. The whole, I can steal from you by somehow, having a copy of something,
right,
and I didn't pay the money for it. So, somehow I prevented a sale that you never made. Mm-hmm. Only I didn't. Like, I didn't interrupt a sale. I just wasn't a sale that you could have had, but I decided not to pay for it. Like, not doing a thing is not stealing a thing. So you can't steal, like, not paying for something that is a copy of something else where that person still owns all of that thing,
right,
and they have
right.
to give it. And it's just a copy of something else, and you
right.
didn't pay for it.
Right.
You didn't steal from them.
No.
You just weren't an additional sale. And they're basically saying, no, like, you should have known that sometime in the future that money would have come to me, and I know the future, and I know that money I somehow would have made that.
Right.
So somehow you stole from me. Mm-hmm. No, you can't know the future. You can't know that you would have made all this money just because these people have copies of your stuff. So it's just the weird, again, control freak way people think. But I love that people are freeing themselves in every way they can. They're just sort of going, is there a way around that whole rule where you just decide you should be able to take my money and maybe I just don't give it to you? I'm going to find a way around that rule. Right. And that's what cryptocurrency is. It's people trying to go, I'm tired of you taking all of my income. So I'm going to find a way around that because I'm really tired of you just skimming off of my time and energy and effort. And so people are just economically going, oh, government is annoying. So I want to go around it.
Exactly.
and they're doing that. So that's really good to see. And I think that's awesome. And I think we'll see more of that.
Excellent. So. Well, thank you very much for a wonderful conversation. Before I let you go, can you just tell me, I ask all my guests a favorite quote of yours that you like, or of anybody's, not necessarily of yours, but what is a favorite quote that you have that you really like?
Oh, man. I don't even know if I can say one. Mostly because I don't ever like quotes that are short.
Really?
I don't like, not many. I mean, there are a few, but I will say, I think it's Henry David Thoreau's quote where he says that, I'll just paraphrase it, but it's that the root of liberty is in disobedience. So the obedient must be slaves.
Right.
And that's one of my favorite quotes out there because the biggest, I think, mental fail of the program Statist is the belief that somehow obedience is this good thing that we should be really training people to be. And that's just one of the most wrong things people believe. Yeah. Just wrong. So I think that's maybe my favorite short quote. A lot of the other quotes I have, I admit, are like wordy. It's like a paragraph by Larken over here and a paragraph by Lysander Spooner. And I always find stuff and I end up liking the section of words and that. So I can't like quote these one-liners like quickly. I can sort of paraphrase their thoughts. But Henry David said a lot of good stuff. That was one of my favorite lines.
Yeah, that reminds me of a Howard Zinn quote, which is the problem in the world is not disobedience. The problem is obedience. So along a similar line.
Yes.
Awesome conversation, Amanda. Thanks a lot for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. So if anybody wants to follow your work, how should they find you? Can you just repeat your stuff again, where they can find you?
My blog site, which will have a lot more activity on it after Anarchapulco, when I'm not getting ready for that, is thedragonanarchist.com. And then my actual Facebook page is The Dragon Anarchist. And my YouTube channel is The Dragon Anarchist. And then I still have room to add friends on my personal page, which will include, other statuses that aren't related to liberty, like my other life stuff too. But it's Amanda Rachwitz. And my last name is spelled Rachwitz. So it doesn't actually look like how it sounds. But that's how you can get a hold of me if you want to friend me. I'll still add people.
Awesome. Yes, please, connect with her, connect with all the liberty-minded people. I think the more that we can network together, the greater our message will be, the greater our spread and outreach can be.
Absolutely.
So we have to connect. So thanks a lot. If anybody wants to help me out, you can help me out through PayPal, Bitcoin, or Patreon. Patreon is patreon.com/peaceful anarchism to help me out. I love interviewing wonderful people like Amanda, and I want to do more. And monetary compensation is always encouraged and appreciated, right? In anything that we do,
Yeah, exactly.
We respond to incentives, right?
Yeah, well, it's our time, so our time is worth something.
Exactly. You vote with your dollars. The only democracy I support. Awesome, Amanda. Thanks a lot for coming on the show. So this is Peaceful Anarchism on the Voluntary Virtues Network and theseedsofliberty.com and theconsciousresistance.com. Wishing everyone have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye.
Bye.